Hello and welcome back, everybody. Uh, Now I know I haven't really done a video in a while, and this video was pretty much going to entail why. So I'm gonna try to do this all in one take. Wish me luck. Okay, anyway, just go ahead and jump right into it. WWE is just in a very just boring position right now, honestly. As a diehard, lifelong literally lifelong, I've seen pictures of me in a diaper watching Monday Night Raw. Lifelong wrestling fan. Right now, it is just so hard, so very difficult to stomach and digest the bullshit that they're trying to feed us on a week to week basis. Now, it's mainly Raw, but SmackDown has its faults too. So just start with Raw. We know that since it's NFL season and uh, since the season has started, WWE does not try as hard as they do during any other point of the year because they know that their views and their numbers are going to be down. But you would think, to appease the people who are going to stick around and who aren't going to change the channel to whatever, that they would try to put on a decent show. I mean, you would think that, right? I would think that. But no, instead, we just got 3 weeks of this, literally 3 weeks of the same third hour segment that entailed what? It was Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss and Mickey James and then a cruiserweight segment. We got that for 3 weeks in a row at one point. Like, why? We don't need that. We do not need that. That is not. And it's not like any of these things were that interesting. No one wants to see the Pumpkin King versus Sister Abigail. Like that. No one wanted to see that. The thing about Raw is they just give up. You can tell that they just give up. They try not to make anything, or I'm not going to say they try not to. I'm sure they try to some extent to make things interesting. But you can see that around the third hour, they just give up. Last week, when was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I believe it was last week when Raw, or excuse me, when SmackDown Live invaded Raw. During that show, it started off kind of good, and it took a massive dip in the second hour. It was unbearable to watch, to the point where I actually switched off. And then at the start of the third hour, they kind of brought it back up with the invasion thing, and then it just I don't know. Raw is pretty bad, and it sucks because when you look at something like NXT, you know that they can put on a modern wrestling show, and they just choose not to. I don't understand why they don't. They just choose not to. And then you go to SmackDown. SmackDown is the land of commercial matches, essentially. There's very limited wrestling. There are more segments than anything. And then when the matches do happen, they're usually cut up by a fucking commercial break. Like, I don't get it. Why would you have a wrestling show if you're barely going to show the wrestling? With all these budget cuts, they might as well just cut the wrestling entirely. Shit. I mean, if they're gonna be this bad at it, and you don't even have to look as far as NXT. Yesterday, which was Halloween 2017, I caught the tail end of 205 Live, and it was a fatal four-way match between Mustafa Ali, Arya Davari, Gran Metalik, and Tony Nese. And it was a really good match, in my opinion. That match had a little bit for everyone. At the beginning, it had a sequence with Gran Metalik and Mustafa Ali. It was a bunch of flip-de-doo wrestling, which, I mean, I enjoy it. I know some people don't enjoy it. But there was a bunch of flip-de-doo wrestling, and then there were false finishes. There were finishers. There were weapons, tables, comedy spots. Like, there was a little bit of something for everyone. And, Tony Nese is more of a brawler type character or wrestler. So it was a little bit of something for everyone. So you don't even have to go as far as NXT when you can still have the main roster guys, the cruiserweights, albeit, who are essentially jobbers to the stars, if you really want to put it like that. I mean, that division, no one besides Enzo is going to get over, and Enzo already has a ceiling as it is. But just looking at it, it's so disappointing when I tune in to Raw every week and I feel like I just get shit on. Like, it's so difficult to watch. 3 hours is already a long time to retain someone's attention. 3 hours when it's not interesting is just asking for someone to change the channel, honestly. And SmackDown, which this time last year, and I know a lot of you wrestling fans have probably heard this from a lot of different wrestling channels. When Ryan Ward was booking SmackDown was so good. It was so damn good. It was pretty much must see every week. There were very few dull episodes. I would put some of those up with like around the 2002, 2006 era SmackDown. Some of them, not all of them, of course, but some of those episodes were just quality episodes. And then now, with Road Dogg, the DOGG, just, wins and losses don't matter, apparently, according to Road Dogg. When in any combat sport, which wrestling is supposed to be, yes, we all know it's entertainment. Yes, we all know, while it is an athletic endeavor, it is not a competition. We get that. But to say wins and losses don't matter is just ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous. That is just, I can't wrap my head around. Well, I can, because Road Dogg was never really that over to begin with. I mean, sure, he was in DX, but he wasn't a single star. And in the Attitude Era, with him being moderately pushed, I guess, you could look at someone like him and he would think that wins and losses don't matter. But if you were to take a Triple H or a Shawn Michaels or an Undertaker and you were to give them the same 50-50 booking that SmackDown has right now, that would be horrible. None of those people would have gotten over. Just yesterday, there was a 2 out of 3 falls match between Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode, which one of the falls was during a commercial break, by the way. And first off, Bobby Roode is technically already lost. He's been pinned 1, 2, 3, which, sure, I guess, since we do that to all the NXT guys. Yes, it was a 2 out of 3 falls match, so the match didn't technically conclude, but he lost. He lost 1, 2, 3 to Dolph Ziggler, who is Dolph Ziggler. I mean, I liked Dolph. I popped huge for his 2013 cash-in, but since then, it has literally been all downhill. And that is saddening, but now I've moved on. I don't really care about Dolph Ziggler anymore. And for Bobby Roode, the glorious one who was a great heel in NXT, super over with his theme, super over because he was Bobby Roode, is now coming up to Maine, losing to Dolph Ziggler. His theme is still over, but he has no character really. He's a doofy white meat babyface that no one wants to see, and it's just not good. It's just not good. And don't even get me started with Asuka. I mean, Jesus Christ. Asuka, she went from being one of the most dominant champions in all of WWE history, undefeated, 523-day reign. And yes, I understand that not all of her matches were total squashes, but most of them were. When she got to Ember Moon, that was really the only person who was a credible foe for her, a worthy adversary. Not even Nia Jax, who had the size advantage, could really believably topple Asuka, because we knew that Asuka could just out wrestle her. Nia Jax was big, yeah, but she was green even then, very green considering it's NXT. So I don't get it. And she came in, she had a competitive match with Emma that I felt went way too long. And then I saw it as she kind of barely squeaked out a win. Most people would disagree. I believe I've seen people disagree. I feel like she just kind of squeaked out a win. And then she had another competitive match with the person you just beat the night before. So if you already beat this person the night before, don't you think that now, since you know, I mean, even though they'd already wrestled in NXT, but on main, since you know this person's moves and you know how they're gonna strategize coming into a match and just things like that, don't you think you would kind of defeat them easier since you know them? You know them now. It's not like she's fighting an Alexa Bliss. She's fighting Emma, who she'd already fought, and it baffles my mind, the booking that they're doing across Raw and SmackDown, and it's hard for me as a diehard wrestling fan, as a diehard WWE fan. I am a diehard wrestling fan, but as a diehard WWE fan, it's really, really hard to stomach this. Like, I don't get this shit when I watch New Japan, or even when I would say when I watch some of my local indies, but can't really speak for all of those. But I don't really get this when I see some Rev Pro and Progress shows or whatever the bigger indies are. They put on constantly spectacular shows with great wrestling and great storytelling. And then you come to WWE, you come to Raw and SmackDown, and it's just like, why? Just why? It baffles my mind. And this is why there's so many pauses in here, because I don't know what else to say. This is it's shit right now. It's really, really bad. And it's upsetting because as a fan, it's obviously something I'm passionate about and something I love dearly. But how can you keep loving something? I'm disappointed. I tune in, or sometimes I don't even completely tune in because I just dread watching Raw, and it's just I shouldn't dread it. And they can do a good show. The takeovers are usually always spectacular shows. I look forward to watching NXT every single week because it's usually a good to great show, and I just tune in to Raw and SmackDown, and if I did something productive with the 3 hours a week that I wasted on Raw, I could probably pick up a new skill, possibly pick up a trade, who knows? I could definitely learn a new language. And it's just, I feel like I'm wasting so much time on a bad product when I don't know if I even want to be wasting this much time. I love it. And then when something cool does happen, yeah, I can always rewatch it. Better to experience it live, but it's I don't know, man. I'm at a stalemate right now with Raw and SmackDown, and obviously they're at a stalemate with their booking. So we'll just have to see how it goes. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening to this rant. Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want, and I'll catch you next time. Hopefully it won't take me as long to put out a video, but life. Bye, guys.